Good evening to everyone on the web tonight. This is Quinn on BaseForge, coming to you from Dallas-Fort Worth on this unusually windy night, braving the gales with a little help courtesy of Smirnoff, to bring you a new game review video. Now, to get things started, I'd actually like to take a moment to check out this copy of Etrian Odyssey Nexus I picked up just a little bit earlier tonight. I've really been looking forward to this one. It's the last installment on the 3DS of the Etrian series. Basically the epitome of everything the Etrian team has learned over the years, doing this kind of dungeon delver that they know backwards and forwards, and promises to be tons of fun. Also, as you can see, the launch edition here also comes some nice little extras. This pin, this art book, and I'm hearing on Twitter that this is selling out all over the place. So if you've got any interest in picking this one up, I would really go out and grab it right now. Of course, though, Nexus is not going to be the title we're going to be talking about tonight, and unfortunately, I can't credit the title that we're going to be discussing with any of that degree of understanding and discipline within its niche that Nexus has. No, what we're going to be talking about is Anthem, specifically the Anthem demo, and it's a much more complicated subject. Now, just to give a little bit of background, I've been a huge fan of Bioware titles, going all the way back to Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, continuing on through Jade Empire and Knights of the Old Republic, and all the way to their heights, really, under Mass Effect 1 and 2 and Dragon Age. But unfortunately, also means I've had some experience with their more difficult moments going into the latter Dragon Age games, and the mixed results of Mass Effect 3, and frankly the failure of Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, before we get into the game itself, we do need to emphasize we're talking about the demo as opposed to the final game. Of course, the game itself hasn't actually released yet. That's going to be later this month at the end of a long and complicated chart of different dates through different services. Something which obviously has drawn a lot of scrutiny on the internet, and deservedly so, and it's also something that's really indicative of some problems with the studio and its marketing, but we'll come back to that later. Also, we really need to draw attention here to the fact that they did choose to do a demo instead of a beta, which is a little bit of an unusual choice. Usually with an MMO, you really kind of want to do a beta, because obviously with the beta you're going to get all the features out there, not necessarily all functioning correctly, but at least you got the whole game, warts and all, and you're able to give everybody a pretty accurate view of what they're going to be getting once everything's up and running. And more importantly, from the studio side, it's also your first opportunity to actually get some real-world data as to exactly how you need to configure your services, your servers particularly, and what to expect once this game is up and running with a full load of players. It's really valuable information there. Instead, of course, they did a demo. So that's obviously where they're redesigning a portion of the program, supposedly in order to make a case for you there, to give you some selected content that will convince you of the quality of the game. It's a much less accurate reflection of the final content, but it's one that should make a better case for the title overall, which in this case it really didn't do, to be honest, which is why it's really odd they chose to do this demo, but we'll come back to that. So right off, spent about 4 or 5 hours with the game this weekend. It's pretty much what you would expect, in that basically you started out at their hub, their main city, and we're given various plot quests, which were mostly fetch and elimination quests, nothing too shocking there. The game ran pretty well. I played it on an Xbox One X, no errors, no unusual graphic artifacts. There were some unusually long load times that popped up frequently. That was surprising, especially on the One X. Graphics overall looked pretty good, pretty competently done. The enemies tend to be well detailed. There's a wide variety. They were definitely interesting. There's a lot of work there. The javelins The power armor suits were frankly pretty cool, well designed, moved well, wide variety of weapons. Also a lot of variations. The basic 4 that you're introduced to definitely had a lot of variety to them. Pretty interesting, and it did run pretty well after those load times were done. So overall, pretty smooth. However, there were a lot of things that were just either annoying or just kind of noticeable in their absence. Right off, for example, with being a demo, you really kind of expected them to try to sell you on the game and the backstory and the lore, and I really didn't see any of that. There wasn't any animations or big videos to explain the story or the background or try to kind of introduce you to the world. Walking around the base city, there were these points where you would normally walk up and hit the X button to open up a lore point, make an entry in your journal, the Cortex as they called it, but all we ever got was a message that just said, this feature is unavailable or only available in the full game, which is really odd because, again, being the demo, this is definitely a time that they should be trying to introduce us to this information, get some investment out of us. Same time, most of the characters we passed didn't really interact, so we didn't get much story from them either. What we did get from the main plot giver, Matthias, from the person helping you with your power, with your javelin and so forth, was pretty interesting and I'd say fairly well voice acted. But it didn't really stand out that much, and also the facial features, while they've definitely managed to avoid the total malfunction and the freak show that was Mass Effect Andromeda, they weren't super impressive either. Right? They weren't wooden, but they definitely were limited compared to what we see in a lot of other games these days. Once you actually got out into the world and started getting into combat, again, things ran smoothly. I'll give them credit for that. And the javelins moved well. The flight mechanism was very well done. It was really cool being able to fly around in those suits. And you could fly right into combat. There's a lot of maneuverability in combat. It took a little while to get the hang of it, of going in and out of flight modes and different maneuvering. But it was pretty cool. And they really made it feel organic. But other than that, combat was a little off. Right off, like one of the quests, the first one that actually had an elimination goal with the boss you had to take out, the boss was a total bullet sponge, which I really don't like. I hate it when it's basically just a matter of just taking tons of time throwing fire at a target. It just gets real boring real quick. And of course, tons and tons of mob spawning. And even though the enemies are well designed and it looked interesting, when there's just waves of them coming out of nowhere, no matter what you do, that gets kind of annoying too. Also, in combat, one thing that really kind of got to me was that one of the mechanics is that if you're hit by any heavy weaponry, the impact will very noticeably jar you and throw off any action you're attempting to take. So if you're taking heavy fire, you will not be able to respond. I can see the value of that mechanic and how that could add some fun complexity, but at times it seemed like almost every enemy was carrying a heavy weapon. So every time I ran out there sometimes to try to get some shots off, I was just immediately being stopped in place, not able to fire, barely able to move. It really just killed the fun of it. It's not even a matter of like, learn to stay in cover. It's just you never really get to get out of cover a lot of the time. So the workaround, of course, being to take advantage of that organic maneuverability, try to fly out, come around, but that just seems like a whole lot of work for a very basic battle. Also, when you inevitably die, because you will, because you're going to be getting tons of firepower thrown at you, and again, once they hit you, that you're not going to be able to respond very well. Once you're down, you can, of course, be revived by your team members, but one thing that most MMOs have added over the years is some sort of backup options, at least minimal backup options, so that if you go down and you can't be revived, they can't get to you, which is a particular issue in Anthem, because again, all that heavy firepower the enemies can throw, they can really make it impossible to get to you without being hit. And if they're hit, they can't move, they can't do anything, so it really becomes pretty much impossible. And once you're down, there's no respawn timer. There's not even an option to go back to the beginning of an area or anything. You're just down, and you're just waiting. Get comfortable, because you're going to be there for a while sometimes, and there's really nothing you can do about it. It's done. Short of logging out of the game, it seems sometimes, which, yeah. Again, anybody who's designed an MMO in this period would know you got to put in some sort of flexibility there, otherwise battles get old real quick. So this kind of shows me there that maybe BioWare hasn't quite tested this stuff as much as it should, which obviously this kind of testing would be the kind of thing you can get done in a beta, but not in a demo. So go back to our issue there. And another thing that was really annoying was that the weapons bonuses, which I mean things in addition to basic like attack value, things like that, these extra little abilities that would be randomly generated for each weapon you picked up, were not really contextualized properly. And this isn't unique. I know Destiny's had the same problem for a long time, where the weapon might say like, oh, equip this, you'll get plus 2% on your thruster cooldown or something like that. And you really don't know how much of an effect that's really going to have, how helpful that really is. There's nothing showing you, what is your current thruster cooldown, for example. So what is this 2% going to do for me, really? And all these bonuses, half the time you have no idea what they are, which as a result of the bigger problem that there is no actual tutorial in this game, which is really weird since this is a demo. It's intended to instruct you on the game and sell the game to you, but they didn't actually put any sort of tutorial. Instead, when you first start the demo, you're given an option to click on a button to see how to operate your Javelin, and it opens the web browser on the console and takes you to a website. It actually takes you out of the game to get information on how to play it. That's doing it wrong, to say the least. You should not be sending people out of your game to learn the basics of how to play it. And I guess that's really the thrust of my review overall. I mean, nothing we did in the demo was different from what we saw back in the E3 presentations. They haven't really added anything for the demo. There wasn't any lore. A lot of the features were obviously scaled way back. But at the same time, they didn't even do the basic work to give us a tutorial, otherwise try to really get us into the world or sell the game to us. They really just didn't go very far on this demo. They really didn't. And that's really the problem here, because, like I said, it's basically well done, or competently done, I should say, but it's not really interesting. It's not really that different. Frankly, it's forgettable. And considering the situation right now where they are needing a hit, something new, something that's going to turn BioWare around, forgettable is really, really bad. In fact, frankly, a forgettable game for them at this point is as awful as an actual bad game. And the strange thing is they don't seem to be aware of that. Just yesterday, I was reading an interview in Ars Technica where they were talking to Blake Jorgensen, EA's CFO, and according to him, the demos went really well. They're getting, quote, lots of feedback. People showing lots of interest and excitement. I don't know who he's talking to here. I don't know if they're just making that up, if they're just in complete denial here, or if they're maybe talking to a very select group of players. I don't know, but they really seem to be kind of deaf to what's going on here. And you know what? Maybe, just maybe, while the demo is obviously a flop and something they did clearly as a last-minute thing with minimal effort, maybe that's because they're putting all their effort into making the actual game just that fantastic, and it's going to be something that's going to knock our socks off and just be a total surprise. But at this point, I really don't see that being the case if this demo is really supposed to be any indicator. So I definitely would not recommend this game for a day one buy. Definitely would kind of want to watch from a distance before putting any money into it. So in the meantime, while we wait to see what happens with the final release, you can definitely feel free to go ahead and leave your own opinions, your own feedback, your own thoughts about Anthem down in the comments below. Also, of course, if you liked this video, we'd really, really appreciate it if you go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons, as this channel definitely has a lot of growing to do. And with that, I'd like to say good night, have fun, and take care of yourselves.